We're all set to call the meeting to order for the Albany County Land Bank Board of Directors meeting. It's 5:30 p.m. Our roll call today. Charles Toohey, Chair, Sam Wells, David Rowley, Joseph Seaman Graves, and Letitia Alexander. And then with staff, who's everybody here? Everybody's here. And council as well. All right, we have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So our agenda, if you look at your agenda item here, the first one we did, call to order, and we do have a quorum. We did the roll call, and now number 3 is the public comment. Have we received any public comment?
We have not.
All right, item 4 is review and approval of prior meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Also move.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any additions, corrections, or changes to the minutes of the May 21st meeting? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Minutes accepted. Item 5 is review and approval of financial statements. Balance sheet, budget, actual, profit and loss. Sean, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'll walk through that. So we, in the past, the finance committee would meet and go over this. When we look at the chart of the finance committee, there's a bit of a disconnect because we're not making any changes, we're not issuing any debt. And so I've got a report for you just to go through, but you'll see the same information you can see every month. But I just wanted to give folks a heads up on that. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I did speak to the chairman about some suggestions I have about taking a look at the numbers of committees we have. We have far more committees than our peers and others out there. There's 3 that we're required to have: finance, audit, finance, and audit and governance. We would probably also have, we have the acquisition disposition. But I think there's some opportunities for the governance committee to get together to talk about those pieces and understand a little bit more what the charges of each of those committees are. But anyway, I'll walk through the financials with you here. First on the report is the balance sheet that shows our current assets in like cash and real estate, shows our current liabilities such as our accounts payable, our deferred revenue for certain grant programs, and unrestricted assets that were not otherwise obligated. So the good news is we still have plenty of cash on hand to fund the land bank. So as you know, it's important for us to keep the cash on hand for operations and cash flow, as obviously sometimes we have obligations that come due before we realize the actual revenue. A couple lines just to point out to you. On line 7 on the first page, this we have about $3.5 million available to us in cash. Next month, you'll see some of these monies being moved into investments. I mentioned, I think, at the last meeting, we're going to start doing that. In fact, we're going to, the first thing we have done is move the $250,000 that we get from Albany County to a T-bill. It's yielding more than 5% right now, so it's well better than what we're getting in a savings account. We don't need that money right away, and so we're going to take advantage of those interest rates. That order was made last week, and what happens is that they will then sell that bill based on this week's auction. So the goal is just to kind of keep that moving on a 30-day cycle because the 30-day rates are really favorable right now. And as we pay attention to what happens in Washington and with the Fed, we'll adjust accordingly. There'll be at a point where I think we're going to expect the Fed to start moving in a different direction at some point, although everybody keeps guessing it's this meeting and it's not, and then it's the next one. But when we start getting into a position where I think interest rates are going to start to change, we'll move some of that money into CDs and then we'll go in that direction. But right now, the T-bills are really the better investment vehicles for us and well within our guidelines. So just another savings account for us.
Do you have a percentage of the cash on hand you're looking to move?
That's what I'm going to work through right now in the next few weeks. We knew, that 250 that came in, we didn't need, so we'll take a look at the budget and see what we can lock up. There's probably about at least half of that cash we can put in. And again, that's why the strategy for those 30-day terms is that we're not so, we don't create anything terribly not liquid. So I say 30-day periods, but we can probably put, every week an order in for 250 and just keep moving that through. Over a month, that would tie up 1 million of our our money that's there at 5%. That's not too bad.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see, the next line to bring your attention further down is line 57. So you'll see that net revenue, that's currently negative. So as you know, we're spending to support operations at the benefit of large offerings of real estate to raise the money from. That's going to be the case until we start getting some properties in, because right now we're just working through what we have in inventory. We are planning to make some changes on the property list that we actually had out of the south end, the Juneteenth celebration, which was wonderful. Not our reach, we showed the building, but we also let people know all the lots that we have in the process too. So we're working through that. The next section in the financial statements starts on the third page, and that's our budget versus actual for 24. So you'll see negatives in the revenue lines, which just reflects monies not yet received. For instance, on line 2, you'll see our annual grant from Albany County does not show, but we have received that. It was just a matter of timing and getting that check from the county, which I think we got on June 2nd. So
I think they have a little PR thing about that.
there was a little social media post that the county executive's office did
So
share
they're
when
going
it
to
did the
decide
check.
how they want to give it to them.
Yeah, they gave us to us in the regular check, but I had to make sure I had my jacket on that day. Mine went down to 112. But we, it was nice. It was a nice.
Oh, good.
The county executive was there.
I did see that post.
Yeah.
That's it was good.
Yeah, so it was good. So we took care of that. Let's see, on our, the next month you'll see that financial, that number will be 0 because we'll have realized that. We've yet to receive the revenue from our real estate development project, so line 11 is another one that until those projects close, that'll look out as outstanding. But I think with the good news looking at the financials on the budget versus actual is that we're nearly halfway through the year by the end of May, but we're probably have spent about a third. So we're trying to keep all those costs as tight as possible. The next section, the financials, a couple pages down, is another profit and loss, but it's going to be a comparison from the same time last year. I think that's a good indicator of where some of those opportunities are that we can have an opportunity to realize on, but as well as some of the difficulties. So again, going back to property income, it's down in comparison to this time last year, but the fee income is up, so we're seeing a little bit of activity there. Line 20, our total revenue is well below where the land bank was this time of year, but again, mostly due to property sales and our lower inventory. Always looking for the ways to keep those expenses down, but some are out of our control. It looks like a bigger number, but the total bill isn't too bad. But to give you an example, our directors and officers insurance increased by
What line is that?
25%. Out of everything I wrote down, that was the one I did not put the line number on. Line 78. So that's up by about 25% over last year. Our health insurance, we're getting the notifications about the increases there. I think we're like 24.1%. We're going to see an increase. It's we just got the notice about the request that they're going to make to the state, and then if we have anything that we want to comment on. But our rates are pretty competitive with others. I think I looked at just yesterday for a comparison purpose, what we're getting from Gallagher, who's our broker, versus say what other small businesses might get through the Chamber of Commerce, and we're right in the same area. So there's nothing to be necessarily gained by making any changes at this time. And the last section is really just for information. It provides a month-to-month look at our profit and loss. So January, February, March, April, and May. I did ask our accountants to put together something a little bit more visually engaging in terms of a dashboard to show you some of these numbers, because it has a lot to look at with columns and lines. So I'm going to work with them for the next financial report next month to give you some charts and graphs so you can see how things are trending and give you a little more insight.
Question, and I missed the email, traffic apologies. You have an emergency demo this month, correct?
Yes,
What was the cost of that? Is that reflected in the 143?
not yet, because that'll be in June. This is May's. But I put in the email,
I might have missed it, so apologies.
I just don't remember. I was there for the emergency bid opening. WPNT, that had the lowest bid of about 70,000. Daytona was the next at 76. So, and if there's any questions about that emergency demo, we took a look at that, and everybody that was there said, this is just a situation waiting to happen. We have to just take care of it.
What are these, transactions on the back of the?
These are the entries that the accountant has made over the last period. So Kingdom Services, that's John, who does a lot of the work around property maintenance expenses for April, so we got that in May, so we were just going back and making a journal entry to charge that against April. Same thing with Whiteman. So just journal entry changes.
Not to dwell on the demos, but do we have anything else in our portfolio right now that is of concern? Because that could definitely affect the budget. We have a couple more of those this year.
Yeah. I know
I thought you have money.
Well, we're in the process of doing 8 proactive demos. And we started doing regular inspections of all our current property because a lot of them are tied up in different projects, but we want to make sure that we're continuing to look at the condition of them. We've looked at 2. There were 2 of concern right now, 123 Fourth, which came down, another one which we're going to go back and look at in another 6 months. We're probably about halfway through our inventory at this point, but I don't think there's anything that's going to beat the emergency demo that we don't have time to do with proactive.
Yeah, this was one that there have been some attempts in the past to stabilize and do some, real stabilization is the best I can. With all the rain and everything, had loosened some things up, and we got a call from a neighbor about some bricks that had fallen. And so we could see on the site that there were some new debris on the ground, and that was enough to be a level concern.
Is the 70K figure because we had to assume that it was hot or, what, asbestos containing?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of brick, there's a lot of weight to that.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, when you go over there, everything is tarped and covered and marked asbestos, and we had to do paperwork with the permanent labor for that as well.
I think based on some of our previous demos, it's probably what we would expect.
Yeah, I mean, the asbestos, a hot demo like that, obviously is a bit, is a little bit more expensive, but those are pretty standard across the city. It's, really like the weight of the building, how much material there is, because the demo contractors get charged for that at the landfill, plus tipping fee, plus, and then the transportation costs. There's if I remember correctly, I think they have to haul it out to a landfill by Syracuse or Rochester.
Yeah, Seneca Falls, is that what it's?
Somewhere, yeah, none of the local ones will accept that material, so it travels pretty decent distance.
And they're trying to close the Seneca Falls landfill right now, so.
Yeah, that'll only increase, I imagine.
Is there any value in doing like a limited hazardous material survey for any that we think might have issues in the future? Does that bring the cost down to the point where you want to initiate that, or is it?
So, yeah, I mean, for the ones that we do proactive demos on, I mean, some of those are actually done before we even had the money to do them, so we kind of knew. There's a few other ones that are in historic districts that are much more difficult to get approval for, that we already have that information, it's just getting it through the process.
I mean, I think other than the ones that we have already targeted, I don't think there's anything that was probably as much concern as that was. And to give you, another, we also had to the back of the building, you can put your arm, the walls were up against each other, but they were not a shared wall. You could get your arm between. You went to the second floor, so it was already starting to fall this way.
The contractors will charge more for that higher degree of difficulty too. If they've got to be extra careful about the adjacent properties, that'll absolutely be more expensive.
We did ask them to, there was a neighbor's garden next door that was gonna be impacted. We just wanted to do it right by the neighbor and got that back. So they were, it was a little bit of cost on our end to make sure the planters were restored properly. But that fits in that harm elimination practice for the land bank. The other side, side of it too, and it was also important, not just the harm, but, the neighbors next door, we had the garden next door, which Erica knows, the folks that maintain that. And actually there was a renovation happening to the building next to it. They're inside and doing work and getting it up to date. So we didn't see that ours was ever gonna come along there. And like I said, the risk was enough that it was time not to let that.
What are you gonna do with the water?
We haven't gotten that.
Can you offer it to an adjoiner? Is there a homeowner next door?
So the garden that's owned next to it is owned by Joan Moore, and I would think she would be absolutely interested in that one.
Great.
Give her more space, since she does a nice job taking care of that. So.
Thank you, it's not demo talk.
Sorry, that's all I've got for you on the financial one, Jim.
So item 6 is report of committees, and we have one committee, acquisition and disposition, so we have two. Let's see, who's gonna do that?
You want more for acquisition, right?
All right, so this month we have, Five.
Shouldn't we make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second, okay, now the presentation.
all right, so this month we have 5 properties, all of them in the city of Albany. 2 lots, 3 buildings. First property, 147 Melrose. This is a property that we got a lot of interest in, the most for a while. And basically what the A&D committee suggested was looking at first-time homebuyers and primary residences. After going through in staff meeting with many of these applicants, the recommendation was made for 4 people to be suggested in the order of 3411, 3416, 3407, and 3414.
That's the order that you want to make the offer to.
Yes.
Right. Everybody get that? Good, all right.
I wasn't at the meeting, but what's the rationale for offering to 3414, 34074, 3414? Is it the offer price?
3414 before 3407 before 3414.
Is that what you said? 34074?
Yep. I think it's.
That was because the family was in the neighborhood, and so they were going to be inhabiting. There was already family there. The asking price also.
Yep.
Maybe, since it's a little confusing, next time when you have 4 staggered ones, put the first one first, so we don't shuffle.
In order of, I like that probably, yeah.
It's a little confusing for us.
I think I just confused myself. 3411 is the first option, though,
Yeah.
correct?
Correct.
2413. Okay. Next is 307 3rd Street. This is in our Lots for Less program. We have one applicant for this, 3408. If you look at the map on the screen, their property is outlined in blue. and 307 3rd Street is in green. It is within walking distance. They meet all the criteria of the program. So 3408 was the recommended.
Is that an owner or a renter?
I believe they own it. They own the
But our policy does include renters now.
It does,
Right.
yes.
It does.
Okay.
Next is 318 Sherman Street in West Hill. We had one application for this property, applicant 3421. There were obviously A and D definitely discussed all of the aspects of this, including the proposed investment, financial assets. Staff met with this applicant specifically. So after that discussion, they did recommend 3421 to move forward to purchase this property. Next is 516 8th Street in Pine Hills. And there were a few offers on this one. This applicant is someone who has a track record in the neighborhood, as well as specifically with land bank properties, especially dealing with properties in the condition that many of our buildings are. This is one that is costing the land bank a bit of money on code violations and maintenance. So it's one that we thought this applicant could do a good job and get it done quickly. So that's applicant 3425. And then finally, 793 Livingston Avenue. Applicant 3402 plans to do new construction on this lot. I have met with this applicant a few times to go over their budget as well as their plans for the property. They've come back and upped their investment a few times. And what the committee decided was they want to give him an option agreement to get his approvals from the city, because in that time while he's getting those approvals, he'll have a better understanding of what the actual cost will be, and then make a decision from there. So the idea is to give him 18 months to get those approvals, and the cost of that option would be his offer amount. And if he were to close, that would go towards the purchase price of the property. If not, then he would not. Then we would retain him.
So if he pays what you have there, you offer him now, how much more does he have out of pocket for legal and other things? Typically for these lots. Do we share in that cost, or how does that work?
He'll have to go through the process by himself to get the option. He probably has enough on hand, and then he has a possible hard lender, it looks like, when he gets to the point that he wants to build. I've also talked to him about looking at other funding sources when we cross that bridge. I think he still thinks he can do it for the price that he's suggesting.
What I meant was, how much are we charging him to close the deal? Do we charge him, or do we pay our own costs?
He would pay the closing costs.
Yeah, so what is that? How much is it? He's paying X for the lot and X for the closing.
So the $1,000 would be the purchase price,
Yeah.
but that $1,000 that he pays up front would go towards that. So he's paying the closing costs, which I think Eric goes in.
Probably about $1,600.
$1,600, so he's really paying $2,600. With the
And
lot
then whatever
for-
the cost is to do all the work,
Yeah,
and he's not sure that he's actually gonna exercise the
yeah,
option.
exactly.
So there's,
on the lots for less, that's a little different.
Yeah, you pay $100.
Where
That
we're
is
absorbing that
we absorb
because we
costs.
want to get that lot off our books.
correct,
This
and,
does not fall into that category.
right, another quote I gave you included a title search, the land bank doesn't, so our
Yeah.
closing costs are less than 60.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, any questions on the dispositions that the committee recommends? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Okay, the dispositions are accepted, enforcement and compliance.
We don't have anything different than what we discussed at the meeting, which was 207. And that action has already been sent to the attorney.
I didn't hear that.
Sorry. I said that nothing has changed since the meeting. We just sent the action to release the reverter on 207 Elm to the attorney so it can be sold with the building at 205 Elm. That's what the committee decided, so that's what we've done.
Everybody get that?
Yep.
Good. Okey-doke. You're cracking the whip this month. Okay, all those in favor of the enforcement actions that have been approved by the committee, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Enforcement committee accepted. Number 7 is consider a resolution authorizing the sale of real property.
You just did that.
And that, yeah,
Yeah, you
that's,
did that.
that's what we just went through.
Oh, you might be different.
Yep, I put it in a different spot, but
Okay.
let me do that. Sorry.
And executive session?
I don't need one time unless anybody else does.
My goodness. Everybody get their free keys?
These meetings are getting shorter and shorter.
They what?
These meetings are getting shorter and
I
shorter.
think that's because we're so damn efficient.
That's right.
I mean-
We have less property right now, so.
Well, that's, yeah,
Yeah.
be careful what we look for.
Yeah,
I think this last acquisition was the longest one I was in, it was almost an hour, 45 minutes.
We had a lot on that 147 Melrose, a lot of.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good property, that's why.
Yeah.
We had the same kind of conversation, I wasn't at the committee meeting this month, but when we had David Lane, John David Lane, we had the same kind of conversation, that those are good properties.
I went by Melrose and it's got a new roof on
Yeah, it's pretty good roof.
Hmm?
Pretty good roof.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Listen, it probably,
Somebody is really
yeah,
gonna
someone's, yes.
enjoy that.
Yes.
it's been a, that property plus the one on Yates Street, have been hot topics in those respective neighborhoods too. So
Good, good.
these are going to be, can't tell you how many inquiries
Wow.
the city has gotten on those
Yeah,
two properties
yeah,
over the
yeah.
past 2-3 years.
Yeah.
These are big wins for
Wow.
us, for the neighborhood, and for our new owners.
Yeah, yeah. You know, not to burden staff or anything here, but you know, in the world of marketing, sometimes you put a sold sign up, you know? You have a land bank sold sign, once you're sure that it's gonna sell, right?
The,
So, you know, that just, it just makes a statement on the block, what does the land bank do? Oh, they had that sign in the window, the graphics or language is not that great. Albany County Land Bank is little lettering, you know, but if you had some kind of sign that says sold, you know, and people go, well, the land bank must have done something good on our block,
Mhm.
you know?
the Yates Street property too, before we took possession of it, had Albany Police Department was there weekly at minimum. And a lot of the neighboring residents were terrified of the former occupants, and there's a lot of rumors about what was happening there. It was a big,
You talk about Yates,
yeah, Yates Street was a big problem on the block. So this is a be great. It's be awesome.
Well, you lived there 15 years ago, and it was sketchy then.
you live there?
My good friend did.
But hopefully land bank will get some of that same Rose, those same Rose properties. Then we're really talking.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because that authority, I understand, will be housed in this space, you know, with the economic development team. I will share a little bit, you know, with that and with the growth of the Alliance, we are looking at a different space in the building for the land bank. Just because we're at the point where we're talking that we'd have to build out some more spaces here. But we think that it might be the right time, especially if we take on properties. Remember, we were up to 10, I think 10 at one point was the highest level when we were really busy.
Taking,
10 staff.
oh, 10 stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So we couldn't fit unless we start bunking up together.
Yeah.
You know, fit those all.
Well, it's in the same building.
It is in the same building, you know, we'll still have some opportunities to work together, and in fact, I think probably what we would work out is be able to still use this room downstairs, and, you know, still let this be sort of the place you stop into. But if you know how to get up to the upper floor, if you go down that road.
We are still thankful to the county
Yes.
Yes.
for enabling us to have this.
Cameras that way.
Shop,
Yes.
right?
Camera left, camera left.
It's just, you know, the success of getting everybody together to work collaboratively,
Yeah.
you know, breeds more success. And I think that's just a good sign that, I say, I got asked a question when I'm looking at the Plug Power picture here. When Plug Power announced it was expanding into Bethlehem and then decided it was, you know, going to leave its headquarters in Colony, you know, it was like, well, what do you know, think about it? That's not a bad thing. I said, listen, it's like, you want to see your children grow up, you want to see them successful, you know, sometimes they move out of the house, you know? It's the same thing, I think. I think that we're, you know, have a successful approach to how we're engaging and investing in the community. And we're just moving upstairs. But that's in it. We're not there.
Well, we're expanding, in other words,
Right.
the operations of this,
Yeah.
this Wise County consolidation of departments, or what do we call them, development agencies, you know, one-stop shop.
But listen, you know, Sunday is, their birthday balloons are here. It was our 10-year anniversary or birthday. We're now 10 years old. And so,
You
come
gonna do a
on,
press release or something?
along.
Ask the same question.
Yeah. So we didn't have really any, I mean, other than saying that we've been here 10 years, we didn't have too much. I actually been spending time trying to work with our partners and with resolutions and proclamations and such.
Well, you might want to look at the highlights, you know, the 5 or 10 bullets.
Yeah.
So many millions of dollars of this,
Mhm.
1,000 properties, you know, 5 or 6 things that we did during this 10-year period.
Yeah, we're due for an update on our infographic on our website.
And of course, our big thing is put back on the tax roll. That's, you know, how much private investment did we stimulate by doing what we did? You know, that's our annual reports say all that.
Yeah.
So for the 10th anniversary, we just take a few of the annual report bullets and make them part of the press release.
Yeah. Well, Monday we did a Sunday we did a social media post just letting people know it was 10 years.
Yeah.
Yesterday's post, we went back and we looked at 108 Broad Street, which is the first building we sold.
Mhm.
You know, and before I posted, I made sure the taxes were paid.
Right.
But, you know, if you go back and if you take a look at that post and you had Mayor Sheehan and all the officials that were out there, there's a lot of folks at the time. You can see the windows were boarded up in white, white door. If you go down there now, it's a neat industrial looking building. The windows are no longer boarded. They're
A few years back, we had a great story of a family on Second Avenue someplace in the south end that were fixing over a house that we did, you know, and that was a great story. We had a lot of PR about that.
Mhm.
And so those are kinds of things we can say. There's a little stops along the way, some happy customers.
Yeah, that's what we're doing this week. This week is
Good.
Land Bank's greatest hits, or Flashback Friday, Throwback Tuesday, which didn't want it to be, but we are playing all the greatest hits this week. So,
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All righty.
thank you.
Aye.
No, objection?